What did you learn about C.J. Stroud last night?
That this is a marathon and not a sprint. You know, I think Aaron Rodgers said it best, I believe, when he was giving Bryce Young some advice about, you know, about how to approach this entire journey, which is kind of go easy on yourself a little bit. And honestly, what I learned here is that, look, this young man threw 4 passes. He completed 2. He had an interception on a 3rd and long situation where he held on to the football too long, didn't get rid of the football quick enough, allowed the safety to jump a route, and he threw a pick. Other than that, I learned that, you know what, he's a guy who has good mobility in the pocket. He still is the same kind of thrower that he was at Ohio State. He was under a lot of pressure, didn't have his 2 starting offensive tackles in the game, and was unable to get into any kind of rhythm at all. And you're not going to get in any kind of rhythm when you only throw 4 passes and play less than a quarter. I mean, that's just so. I mean, you kind of like keep it in context. I mean, there's no way to really analyze that any further than that, than to say, yeah, the decision-making on the interception was one where he has to be a little bit better as far as the timing with which he throws it, getting it out of his hands quick, whether or not he needed to take the check down that was right in front of him. Yeah, it's one snapshot. It's one play, and I know it's something that we're going to sit here and we're going to churn over and over again, but I think in the broader picture, in the bigger picture, you have to understand that this is going to be something that's going to have these ups and downs, and I think he articulated that very well. He needs to go easy on himself, and we'll just see how he is able to now come back in the next game and see if he does continue to repeat those kind of mistakes, or whether or not the timing with which he gets rid of the football, the way in which he is reading things out pre-snap and post-snap continue to improve. And there's a lot of work that's going to be done behind the scenes, you know, in joint practices, in best-on-best situations against his teammates that we won't be privy to, that we won't see. So, look, I looked at it when he threw that. I kind of cringed, and I was like, man, that's just exactly the kind of thing you don't want to see, because I know what's going to come as far as the criticism is concerned. But I think we've all been around long enough to understand that this is game 1 for hopefully what is a 15, 20-year career. So I take it in stride. I'm looking forward to seeing him play the next time, and looking forward to the rest of these quarterbacks getting their first crack at it as well in preseason competition.
That scene that you mentioned where we saw Aaron Rodgers giving some advice in Hard Knocks to Sauce Gardner. I know he's talked to Bryce Young about it too. It reminded me, Lewis, of a time when I covered the Minnesota Vikings and Patrick Peterson, all-pro cornerback, was going into, I believe it was year 11. And I asked him, how do you can have like the career longevity that you do? How did you get here? And he said, stay at cruising altitude, which is something that I think every rookie quarterback needs to embody as they go through this process of the preseason. It's going to look ugly at times because you're learning the offense. Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator, has never called plays before. He's in C.J. Stroud's ear down in Houston. He's learning how to do this for the first time. It's never going to look like a polished product, but there were moments last night where I thought he looked maybe a little tepid in his decision-making. He takes the sack, he throws the interception that leads to the Patriots field goal. Those are moments you'd rather have get out of the way in the preseason when he is still learning this install and trying to master it and have mastery of this offense. But I do think that as we talk about the overall conversation here, this opens up the door for this quarterback competition, at least of what we've seen in camp, to continue a little bit longer between himself and Davis Mills going into the week. D'Amico Ryans had C.J. Stroud taking all the first-team reps. I don't think that that's not going to continue along that path. But if we're projecting this thing out week 1, C.J. Stroud is your starter. Getting him these reps, letting him play longer in that second preseason game is only going to benefit him as he gets ready for that season opener.
Yeah, and Lewis, I think one of the things that we both know, and Courtney, you know this too because you've covered the NFL for so long, is that there are going to be ebbs and flows. Whether it's practice, whether it's games, there are going to be moments in the meeting room where you might not be your sharpest. But how do you respond to it, right? And looking at C.J. Stroud last night, you kind of seen a little bit. It was his first preseason game, bright lights. He's on this stage. He's had this dream since he was a little kid. Trust his instincts more. Trust what he's actually seeing. But I think that's going to come the more reps that he gets. I think the biggest teacher and the best teacher is experience, being able to be out there and go through these moments and go through these things so you will understand how to respond to them. And when it came to the interception, I think, you know, Courtney, you mentioned Bobby Slowick, it being his first year being an offensive coordinator. I think just a simple, for him learning too, just a simple 3rd and long, 3rd and 21. Hey, CJ, before I call this play, it's 3rd and long. We don't have to go for the gusto. If it's not there, don't force it. Just take your check down. that's something he can say to his young quarterback before actually calling that play, because you don't have many plays for 3rd and 21, right? Take the check down, throw it to the flat, punt the football. Those are something both of those guys are going to be able to learn moving forward. But how are you going to learn if you don't go through it? Also, understanding that it's always imperative that you know what both of those safeties are. Those are things that C.J. Stroud is going to be able to learn moving forward. And I don't think you're going to be able to learn if you don't go through those hard moments and those hard times. So I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm excited that he's going to be able to went through that last night, but he's going to be able to learn, as well as DeMeco Ryans, who's a first-year head coach, along with Bobby Sloak, who's a first-year offensive coordinator. But these moments, man, it's how you come back from them, how you respond to them, how you respond in practice. And I'll be in there watching film like no other. But this offensive system, and Lewis, I got to touch on this. This is what a lot of people don't understand about this Shanahan offensive system. Year one is a juggernaut for I don't care who you are. You could be a veteran player. You could be a young player. That second year, and Tyreek Hill has come out and said that down in Miami with Mike McDaniel. Now I understand the system a little bit more because it's year two. Year one, you're trying to figure a lot out, and C.J. Stroud being young as well. I think he's going to be all right, though. I'm just glad that he's able to, go through some things and learn from them.
Will the Bills miss the playoffs this season?
I'm going to go no, and I think that was a hot take. And I think the more, the offseason starts to play out with training camp or whatnot, and we see the Jets and them having the offensive line issues, and then coming into the season, you have the questions about Tua Tagovailoa, and can he remain healthy the rest of the season? And then you look at New England, and can Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones get on the same page? And can Mac Jones get back to what he was doing in his rookie season? You have to look at all these things when you make statements like that. And when I look at the Buffalo Bills, yes, they have things that they need to work on because I feel like they got to run the football more. But when I look at this team, when you have a guy like Von Miller coming back, who is going to mean a whole lot to their defense, you have a guy in Tre'Davious White who was coming off an injury a season ago, and now he's going to be fully healthy. You're going to get both of your safeties back. Those guys aren't going to be missing time. I look at this Bills team, and I'm saying to myself, they've won the division the last 3 years, and early on, I picked the Jets to win this division. Right now, I don't feel that way. I feel different about that decision that I made early in this offseason. I feel like the Bills and the Dolphins are going to contend for that division. And I think right now I have the upper hand with the Buffalo Bills because they have so much returning and not so much new. Also, you look at Josh Allen. I understand he had turnover issues, but I think more so for me, I want to see Ken Dorsey be more, consistent calling the run game for this offense. So Josh Allen doesn't have to be put in positions to where he has to be Superman all the time. So that's why I am with the Buffalo Bills. I definitely think they're making the playoffs, though, in 2023.
If this was such a hot take, I thought you'd be more up in arms than just, no, I don't agree with this. I thought you'd be throwing stuff and all upset about this take. Project out this, divisional round for me. Project all the division winners. So we've got, who do you have winning the East? Got Buffalo?
Yeah, I got Buffalo.
You got Buffalo. So we've got the Jags coming out of the South. We've got the Bengals coming out of the North, and then the Chiefs out of the West. I don't think any division is going to have 3 going into the playoffs because the AFC is so loaded, which is why and I've said this publicly, I think this is Buffalo's division to win until it isn't, but it's not as preposterous of a take and a hot take in my mind because of how loaded the AFC East is. Miami might have the most explosive offense. I think they have the best roster in the AFC East. We know that the New York Jets are primed to make a run. They've gone all in. From Aaron Rodgers to what you and I talked about earlier on Get Up, maybe making a trade for somebody on the offensive line. I don't know, maybe there's somebody in Dallas that they want to go get. I don't know. Maybe it happens. But it's not so far-fetched because you take a look at some of the deficiencies that this team had last year. Josh Allen in the red zone interceptions. The fact that the running game did not have an efficient plan, nor did it take pressure off of Josh Allen, so he wasn't always in those situations where he had to come through as Superman. And then, of course, they've reworked the receiver room, but Stephon Diggs still there. Is that drama completely gone away? Did we just put a Band-Aid over at that and act like if there aren't a couple games that they don't win or things don't go his way, that drama's not going to boil up again? There's some issues here. And defensively, they lost Tremaine Edmonds in free agency. He went to the Chicago Bears. That's no small loss. We just knew that would be a byproduct of how many players they had to keep and pay. But Tre'Davious White has struggled staying on the field. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Von Miller, all on the other side of 30. I wouldn't be shocked if things ended up not going according to the plan that both you and I have. Lewis, I'm sure you're aligned with us here too, with the Bills not being a playoff team, because there's so many other teams in the AFC, 2 of which in their division, which are going to have something to say about that.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't make the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked if Miami didn't make the playoffs, because we don't know if Tua's going to stay healthy. We don't know if the uptake on the defensive side of the ball is going to be what I expect it to be, with Vic Fangio being the new defensive coordinator. And I think him and Bill O'Brien, respectively, offensively and defensively, could have more of an impact on their respective units than any other assistant coaches in the NFL that went to new teams this year. So that's something that right now is that's up in the air. When you're talking about the New York Jets, we don't know how this offensive line is going to be. We don't know if Mekhi Becton is going to be healthy all year long. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be as mobile in the pocket for 17 games as maybe he looks right now in the preseason or in training camp, and feel as good as he's feeling right now in training camp. There's a lot of unknown. And with Buffalo, yeah, there's unknown. Of course, is Ken Dorsey going to commit to the running game? Is he going to wind up eventually kind of carrying out the philosophical vision that I know Sean McDermott has, which is we need to capture the line of scrimmage. We need to be more physical up front. We need to use James Cook. We need to use Damian Harris. We need to use Latavius Murray. And we need to not use Josh Allen as much as we use him. And that's something he's articulated to me personally when we've been up there to talk to him about this. And somehow, some way, they get away from it as the season goes on, and they wind up defaulting back to Josh, which is something they can't continue to do. Look, on the perimeter, on offense, they're as good as anybody in the NFL. Look, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Stephon Diggs. I mean, these guys are absolute game breakers. They will be able to light the scoreboard up with anyone, and I mean anyone. So I'm not worried about that. Defensively, Von Miller, I think of anyone in Buffalo, the health of Von Miller probably holds the key to this football team getting over the hump as far as making sure they stay together. Everyone's rowing in the same direction. There aren't any kind of fractures and fissures in the foundation where people are starting to spout off and get frustrated if things aren't going right. Because Von Miller is that dude. He did it for the LA Rams. He was doing it for Buffalo, and when he got hurt last year, things started to unravel. So I think we need to pay attention to him being on the field and his influence on this football team. But look, for me, I'm not going to say, look, Buffalo's just not going to make the playoffs, because I just don't think they're going to make it. The East is very, very hotly contested, and any one of these teams can be at the top or at the bottom. I think in the East, I still believe that Miami wins the division. I really do. I think another one will come out of there. I think either Buffalo or the Jets will come out of there. Look, I think when you're talking about the North, look, Baltimore and Cincinnati could come out of there both. So you could get 2-2 right there. I think in the South, obviously, it'll be Jacksonville. And I think out there in the West, it could be both Kansas City and the LA Chargers. The Chargers' only issue is whether or not they can keep people healthy. That's it. When they're healthy, they're battling with everybody. But they're one of the most injured football teams that have one of the most ridiculous strings of bad luck in terms of keeping their starters on the field of anybody in the past 3-4 years. It's just bizarre to me. So I think when you're talking about the East, it's a toss-up. It really is. But I think 2 at the very least will come out of there. And I wouldn't be surprised if 3 come out of there. I'm not one of those people who's kind of looking for, this doom and gloom Armageddon type of situation to unfold in Buffalo, simply because, I think that some off-season drama was something that's just going to implode this team. I think their DNA is better than that. I think they're built better than that. I think from the very top down, from Brandon being the general manager through Sean McDermott on down to the roster, they're built better than that. So I wouldn't be shocked if they wound up winning the division. That's the thing about the NFL. This is what the league wants. They want parity. They want there to be a lot of debate and discussion about this. And with Buffalo, I believe they'll be right there.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2 teams out of the AFC East, but here's who could throw a monkey wrench in a lot of things in the AFC Conference. The Cleveland Browns. If Deshaun Watson can get back on schedule to playing great football, them being able to disrupt and ruin a lot of teams' plan who probably think they can make the playoffs this year could be, I think, astronomical. If Deshaun Watson can get back playing football to what he was playing before we seen his hiatus, I think the Cleveland Browns can disrupt a lot of things.
Okay, so now we have our fan vote results from the QR code from earlier. All right, 62% say the Bills will not miss the playoffs. Courtney, your response?
I'm not surprised by that at all. I mean, I think we're all kind of in line that this is their division to win until it isn't, as you mentioned that stat, not having lost it since 2019. They're a very good football team. They are constructed well. Lewis, you bring up their DNA. That's what I think they can fall back on, despite losing Brian Daboll 2 years ago and trying to figure out what they do now, like what direction they want to go offensively with Ken Dorsey in his second season calling plays. And all of the offseason drama, the defensive moves that they made, getting an older group. Let's not forget, they also brought in Leonard Floyd this offseason. I think that that's an underrated move that we have not talked enough about it yet for a championship caliber defense. It's just a gauntlet. I mean, this is exactly what the NFL wants, to have three teams that we're talking about beating up on each other, three teams with excellent defenses from top to bottom. And you could even throw the New England Patriots in there with the work that they've done defensively in the draft and in free agency, that this division is going to be, I want to dub it the next black and blue division, kind of like we've called the AFC North the last couple of years. I don't know if they're ready to give up that title, but these teams are going to be beating up on each other this year. It's going to be fun to watch.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.